Thank you so much, Christine. Okay. There we go. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. As Christine said, my name is Kavitta. I am the co-founder and CEO here at Nectar. And I think today we're going to start off with sort of the story. How did I get to this place? Where did Nectar, the idea, come from? And what was it like building the company to this stage? And then I'll go through some of my sort of tangible points on what you can do to prepare for your career in a future that is going to be driven by AI, and then open it up to questions. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Would love to answer them, whether that is on the company itself, starting a company, whether that's something that you're interested in, or any of the AI points as well, or how I went from a communication major to where I am today. So, going to sort of the origin story back to day one, my co founder Jordan and I started Nectar when we were undergrad students at UC Santa Barbara. And so, this was actually never supposed to be a company. It was just something that we built because we needed it in our own classes. So, for me specifically, I am autistic and I have ADHD. And on top of that, I'm first generation. And so I have never been in a classroom that has felt comfortable for me or my brain to be in. And then I got to college and I started paying $40,000 to be very uncomfortable. And that's when it became enough of a pain point that I said, either I'm going to drop out or I've got to do something about it. And I really had no idea at that point what a modern classroom could look like. All I had seen over and over was this 400-year-old classroom model that I couldn't understand why we were still using, why we are still using it today. And so I went through my entire freshman year of college feeling isolated, like there was no one that I could go talk to really get an understanding of how did you as a student navigate this process, navigate college, figure out what career path you wanted to choose, pick the internships, all of that good stuff. And it wasn't until I took a course that was taught by a grad student instructor that it completely changed my life and showed me what a truly modern classroom could look like. So the class that I took, it was theories of communication, and it was the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And like I said, it was taught by a grad student, Spencer. And so Spencer was a little bit younger, more tech savvy than most instructors I had had, but most importantly, he was a student himself. So he built the course design according to what he wished he would have seen in his undergrad courses. So we walk in on the first day of class, and before Spencer says a word to us, he sits us down and turns around and writes the link to a Slack workspace on the board. And he turns back to us and he says, "We're going to do this class a little differently, and I need you to trust me." He said, "I don't want you to raise your hand ever in class because I know you're not going to." He said, "I don't want you to send me or the TA a single email. I don't even want you to come into office hours." He said, "If you have any questions, whether it's in the middle of lecture or it's 3 in the morning before the midterm, your first line of action is going to be to put that question in the Slack chat because I guarantee that one of the 149 people around you will have a better and faster answer for you than I will." And he said, on top of that, if you answer someone's question really well, I'll give you extra credit for it because that lets me know that you understand the material so well, you can then turn around and teach it to the person next to you, which is actually the highest level of mastery that you can achieve. And he said, even beyond that, this is my only instant feedback loop into your brains. So, based on how the conversation was unfolding, Spencer knew in real time where he needed to adjust the lecture. So, it wasn't based on students emailing him and saying, "I don't get this point," or coming after class and saying, "Can you teach that again?" He would quite literally watch how we were conversating in the middle of lecture and adjust in real time to focus on the points that he knew we really needed. And so it was the first time I had ever taken a class that truly felt inclusive and accessible to me and everyone else around me. Up until that point, those were just buzzwords that I knew people used, but I didn't really know what they looked like in real life. And he had essentially created a Trojan horse. He had taken the part of school that we love the most, which is making friends and building our community and our network, and he had put that at the center of the learning experience. So, in order to even be part of that classroom community, we needed to know the material deeply enough that we could engage with one another and play our role in that community. And so it was an incredible way of inciting this protege effect, which is essentially that the deepest method of learning is to immediately after you learn a new topic, turn around and teach it to the person next to you. And that takes you from rote learning, which is just memorization, to meaningful learning, where it's actually accessing the long-term memory center of your brain. So it's easier to recall that information going forward. And so I left that class with the highest grade that I got in college and more friends than I had ever made before. And I was like a dog with a bone. I said, that was it. Put Slack in all of my classes and it will solve all of my problems. And so I approached UCSB and I needed someone to explain to me, if me and 26,000 other students are paying you $40,000 a year, why can't you put Slack in all of our classes? And that was my first time realizing why the education system is the way it is. Because it took 5 weeks for someone to even figure out who on campus could answer that question for me. Because the same way that we as students are waiting 2 days for an email response from our professor, that's exactly what's happening across the entire campus. Even the departments are only using email to communicate with one another, which, as we've seen over the last decade, every company now knows that is not the most effective way to communicate, which is why they have things like Slack and Teams. So I kept wondering, why are we still using this outdated communication system across a campus that's 10 times the size of a normal company? And so finally, I was sent to the instructional design department. And this wonderful woman, Mindy Collin, who we still work with today, she very kindly sat me down and walked me through the logistical hell of putting a separate Slack workspace in 1,500 classes every quarter, teaching professors who are on average 55 how to use an enterprise level tool that they typically haven't seen before, and then paying an enterprise level cost for 26,000 students every year. She essentially said, it sounds good in theory, and maybe you have one or two instructors who are tech savvy, use the free version the way that you saw, but this will never work across an entire campus because Slack isn't built for schools. And I think you could see a literal light bulb appear above my head in that moment because I realized, okay, I've got to build Slack for schools. So my co-founder Jordan and I spent the next year in that office with Mindy, asking her to detail exactly what this product would have to look like to be able to deploy it across an entire campus of 26,000 students, to get the professors to be the champion of it, and to get UCSB to pay us for it. And we built exactly that, worked backwards from what does our customer actually wish that they saw on the market, and then was able to deliver that exact product to them so that we knew it would be able to work across the campus. And I will spare you the bloody, gory details of us physically walking into 1,500 classes and begging professors to please try this tool because I promise it'll save you time answering emails. But a year later, we got all 26,000 students at UCSB using Nectar in almost every single one of their classes, with the professor being the champion of the tool. And we got UCSB to pay us $60,000 a year for it, so we earned our tuition back, which was great. And that was the moment that we knew we need to go put this technology not just in colleges and universities, but in K-12 campuses as well, because every student and teacher deserves a modern communication method that activates these new learning technologies that actually help us create this modern classroom and evolve past that 400-year-old model that we're still using. So that was the moment that we went and raised our pre-seed round of funding. We raised about 2.25 million at an 8 post, and that was at the end of 2021. So it was just me and my co-founder at that time, fresh out of college, no idea how to build a company, but we found an incredible community of investors who believed in our mission and our vision to create the classroom of the future. And now, 3 years later, we have actually just closed our second round of funding last week. So we closed our $4 million seed round. And we're very excited to continue building out this product and deliver it to thousands more schools, not just in the US, but around the world. We to date have over 40 campuses around the globe that are using Nectar, with tens of thousands of students and faculty and staff as well. And so now that we've sort of laid the land of what did it take to get to this point, I really want to go back and focus on what was it that I was able to do in college to prepare for building this company, and how was I able to translate being a communication major into now being a CEO and a founder of my own company. So I think the first thing is I had this idea that a founder or a CEO needed to look a certain way, not just be your typical white male, but come from an Ivy League background, have those connections baked in, be it from family or otherwise, or at the very least have gone to a business school, which UCSB doesn't even have. But what I realized is the only thing that you really need is to find a problem that enrages you enough that it will fuel you to find a solution to it. So to find something that affected me deeply enough that I knew this is the solution that I would want, and that this is something that is important enough to me that I will put in the work day and night for years on end to be able to find a solution that not only works for me, but every other student that is like me. So that was the first part is finding a problem that you truly, truly care about. And I think once you have that, that is the basis for starting any company. It doesn't matter what background you come from or if you've even been in business in any capacity before. Me and my co-founder had not. We were still in college when we started this. We had never worked at a corporation. We weren't in business school, either of us. We didn't even have the technical experience. We learned all of that on the job. But if you find something that you care deeply enough about, it will fuel you to learn everything that you need to along the way. And we talk about it a lot as building the plane while it's falling out of the sky. And it does feel that way. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy to start a company in any capacity. It's not. But if you are passionate enough about what you're working on, and by passion, I mean anger, is it something that angers you enough that you're going to find a solution to it? That is what will lead you to be able to create a vision or a story around your problem and solution that you can then rally others behind. And so when I look back at why was I even able to do this in the first place, I actually attribute 99% of the success to my communication skills. So my ability to tell this story to others, be it through writing or speaking, is the only way that I was able to get teachers and students to use this new product. So to talk to the customers and figure out what they need was the only way that I was able to get investors to believe in the mission and in me and my ability to execute and to continue to take this company forward. Everything that I do on a daily basis revolves around my communication skills. And I now believe that it's actually one of the core tenets of what you do need as a CEO or a founder. You have to be able to tell a story effectively because it's very true that people won't remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And so when I look at the skills of the people that I'm bringing onto my team, specifically when it comes to those first 20 hires that are really going to be founding team, they're going to own a significant piece of this company. I'm looking for people who are able to tell their own story to me so that I can feel that emotional pull of, yes, you are the person that I want on my team, whether that is for engineering, for copywriting, whatever the position is. You have to have those effective communication skills because even if your communication isn't necessarily going out to the world, you have to be able to relay that to the team members around you. So now that we've sort of gone through how was I able to translate communication and writing skills into this role, I really want to focus on what are the tangible skills that you can take from this into your own life. Even if you don't plan on starting a company or being in any role similar to mine, I still think it's very important that we focus on how these skills are what I believe are going to be the next software engineering STEM skills that we've heard for the last 10 years are make or break in the industry. I think that now that we've seen AI really take over every industry over the last year, and it will continue to do that over the next decade, something that I understand is our communication and writing skills across the board are were already melting away. And with AI, I think it's going to be even more so. We now see people rely on AI to write their emails, to write blog posts, essays, any sort of communication that they do. In just a year, we've already gotten to a point where most people are going to look to AI to say, is this the right way to communicate what I need to effectively? And so, if you are able to have those communication skills in house, if you have them yourself and you don't need to rely on AI for them, continue honing those skills. I guarantee you over the next decade, we're going to see that be one of the most prized skills that companies look for across the board. They're going to need human beings who can communicate effectively without the use of AI because those are going to be the leaders of all of the teams within the companies. So, yes, we're seeing the job market be really tough right now. But if you look at the roles that people are actually hiring for, it is at that director, VP, manager level, because AI might be able to replace some of those entry level roles, but it is not ever going to replace the leaders of those teams. We're going to have to figure out how to effectively use that AI to achieve the jobs that they need to. So if you can position yourself as a leader who is able to communicate effectively to their team and figure out how to translate a to-do list into here's how we're going to parse it out, we're going to use AI to do this part, but we ourselves are going to do XYZ, that is the skill that they're going to look for 100%. And like I said, even when we're looking for, VP of engineering or director of engineering roles within Nectar, we're still looking for someone who has those communication skills. So it's becoming mandatory very quickly. So I want to say that first and foremost is when I was in school, I thought that being a communication major meant that my only job options were in marketing or advertising or copywriting. And it was very difficult to expand my mind past that of what could I do with these skills. But in reality, now I see those are the basic skills that I think anyone should have in any role. And so if you have those already and you're at this point where this is what you're studying in grad school, meaning that you're an expert, you're the 1% of the 1% of the best communicators in the nation, those are the most critical skills that you want to take into any role and really emphasize on your resume or to your employer. This is what I'm best at, because those communication skills, like I said, can be translated into any job that you're doing anywhere at this point. Now, I think the second thing that you can do to really prepare for AI sort of taking over the world is to stay in the loop about what AI is able to and not able to do. What I have seen is we have so much fluff that's coming out in the media about AI. Everybody's talking about it. Everyone assumes that it is the end all be all, that it can do everything, that we're already at AGI. And that's not true. If you actually start using the AI tools like ChatGPT and all of the apps that they've built, they can do the basics, they can do entry level positions, but it is not actually replacing everything the way that the media says that it is right now, which means that the best thing that you can do is actually start using these technologies on a daily basis, even if it is just to stay in the loop about what they can and cannot do. Because when you go to an employer, they're going to want to know that you do know how to use these technologies, that you're aware of what is and is not available on the market to help you and your team, and that AI cannot do XYZ, but I, as a human being, can. And that's why you need me at your company, because I can utilize AI to do all of these steps 1 through 7, but 7 through 10 must be done by a human being. And I actually have the skills to complete the full picture. And so, as an employer myself, that is exactly what I'm looking for. In any role that I'm hiring right now, I'm looking for somebody who is aware of what AI technology is actually able to do and not do, and can tell me if I give them a task, great, I'm going to go solve this. I have AI to be able to accelerate this process and do this for me. But here's why you need me on your team, because it's still not able to do this. And even if AI did come out over the next year to do that, it won't be able to do it better than I can, because I, as a human being, can develop those skills according to your specific company, to your mission, to your storyline for what you need at Nectar. So I think that is the best way that you can prepare yourself. And when it comes to how do you actually stay in the loop about AI, it's going to sound silly and simple. Twitter is the best way to do it. I have not found any other technology or media source out there that updates you in real time about how AI is changing each industry, because the leaders of these companies, that's the first place they're going to Twitter, to their personal profiles, to tweet about what's about to come out, what their thoughts are on who they need for their team, what technologies are going to emerge over the next year. So if you are not on Twitter yet, or even if you are, I would highly suggest following different AI leaders. First one, Sam Altman, founder and CEO of OpenAI. May sound simple, but he tweets very often before a release happens so that everybody on Twitter knows, okay, in the next 2 weeks, this is the new feature he's going to release. which then creates this domino effect on the rest of the industries. Google, Perplexity, all of these major AI companies sort of follow suit. So if you can figure out from Sam Altman all of the people that he retweets or talks to, okay, those are the other people that are sort of leading these industries. Those are the people that you want to follow. And for me personally, it's not that I am using Twitter as a space to put out my thoughts as a thought leader. It's actually that's where I go to ingest all of this data. And so you can be anonymous, you can be a lurker on there, but use that as your source of immediate news and updates, because it's much easier than going and finding those articles yourself and trying to figure out what's happening or what's being released in real time. So that's my first tip, is find your way onto Twitter, follow these people, stay in the know of what is coming out, because that is going to be a critical skill that any employer is going to look for. And if you are the person in the room who knows what's happening in AI in real time, it's going to be a skill that everyone's looking for, and it's going to be very impressive to whoever your employer is. Now, the second part, like I said, is utilizing those tools on a daily basis. So I hear a lot from people the chatter about ChatGPT and what it can do and these new LLMs. But when you ask them, are you actually using it? Have you tried using that tool to do what you're saying? That's often where you hear, no, but I'm sure it can. I saw a video of it. Go try the tool yourself. See how good or bad or whatever it is. But if you have actual experience with the AI, it is much less terrifying because you realize it's not actually that great yet. It's awesome in terms of being able to do things that we could not think of 5 years ago, but it is not at the capacity where it's going to replace human beings the way we see in the movies. So by actually utilizing these tools, you'll be the person in any room who can say, yeah, that might sound really good as a framing for that article, for that company, but that's not actually what that AI tool can do, because I've tried it myself. It doesn't create videos in that way, or it's not able to write content in that way. It can do, like I said, 1 through 7, but 7 through 10 is still going to require a human being. And I know it because I've experienced it myself. So as you're on Twitter, as you're on media, consuming and reading about all of the new technologies that are emerging, test them out. Even if it's for 5 minutes, make an account, see what it actually looks like, even if you feel like it has nothing to do with the industry that you want to enter, just so that you can say that you're staying ahead of that technology and you actually know how it's being utilized today. The last part of this is, if you can practice your oratory skills alongside your ability to write and express yourself through writing, that, in my opinion, is the killer combo. We see a lot of people who can do one or the other. They can speak really well and tell stories out loud to people, but when it comes to translating their thoughts into writing, that becomes really difficult to do. And same thing, vice versa. I see a lot of people who are incredible writers. They can express millions of words in just a few sentences and create this beautiful story through their writing. But then if you ask them to actually say that out loud in a way that sounds conversational and not scripted, that becomes really tough for them to do. So if you're able to balance both skills, to be able to express yourself through writing, but also to be able to say those pieces out loud, like I said, in a way that sounds conversational and human, that is something that's going to set you apart from everybody else, regardless of what industry or position you're going into. Because I truly believe that one of the skills we're going to have to hold on to really tight is our ability to write and speak. Those are the first things that AI is taking off of everybody's plate. And if you're the one who stays honing those skills, making sure that you are the best orator in the room, that you're the best communicator in the room, you're the one who's going to be selected for those leadership roles. It is the best way to have upward mobility in any company, because whatever the leader is that they're going to choose for that role or that department, it has to be someone who baseline is the most excellent communicator on that team. All other skills aside, a managerial, a director, a C-suite role, I can speak from experience. Your main job is going to be managing other human beings. And in order to do that, you have to be able to effectively communicate to them. And I'm sure you've all seen in the roles that you've already had at internships and jobs, It is not easy to find a boss who is good at expressing themselves and communicating effectively in a way that is calming, that is, I think the best way to put it is the best leaders are the ones who can envision a world that does not yet exist and then translate that down to a level that everyone can understand so that they can rally people around them and motivate them to achieve these goals and achieve this world that we can't see yet, but that leader can. So if that's what you're able to do for any company, that is the skill that's going to take you the furthest. Be able to communicate that company's story or their mission in a way that can rally people behind it. Because, like I said, I always go back to the baseline of people may not remember what you said or what you wrote, but they will remember how you made them feel. And I think that is the strongest, most powerful skill that all of you have is the ability to pull emotions out of people based on your writing and your communication skills. So I want to stop there and let it open up for questions and see what do you guys actually want to talk about. I'm open to sharing any part of my story, so nothing is off limits, but I hope that that was helpful.
Incredibly helpful. Thank you, Kavitta. I started off introducing you by saying you are an inspiring leader in the AI and EdTech space, and everything you shared today with our small but mighty group of writing and language experts and communicators has been absolutely inspirational. Well,
Thank
folks
you.
are thinking about, thank you. While folks are thinking about questions for you, I've been taking notes on Post-its, as is my low-tech way forward. Thanks for the thumbs up, Clea. And I'm just gonna point out the three things that stood out to me that you shared with us. One, finding a problem that enrages you, because that is the greatest motivation. And I think that is true on so many levels, and particularly for our group. I'd say it's a good idea to keep in mind for your thesis and capstone projects. If it's something that you want to fix, you'll be motivated to push through new learning curves, which is what I heard you share. The second thing is how important writing and communication skills are and will be to leadership. So the fact that our students are I think you said the 1% of the 1%, because you're in a graduate program building these skills, you are positioning yourself to be leaders across industries, because the writing and communication skills at a very high and strategic level are going to be more important. And that's because those lower entry level positions are moving away. And so really nice to hear someone other than me say that. The students in the room share that in your classes. It's not just me saying it. And then the third thing is your recommendation to know what AI can and can't do, and be able to articulate very clearly what your value is as a human in the room, in the process, able to add that authenticity, that it's not just created by AI and then read by AI. It's something that is a human has put time into, so that it will be read and taken up and consumed by a human. Hugely important, as is everything you said about storytelling, founding a company, doing work that's good work in the world. So I will stop talking, because no one needs to hear more from me, and I'll open it up to our group. Anyone who has a question or comment, please come off mic, or you can type it in the chat and I'll voice it for you. Oh, and I'm going to stop recording. Oh, geez, I wasn't supposed to be in the recording.